Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics from our beautiful studios here on the campus of the University of Central Missouri in Warrensburg. We're now welcome to the show, State Representative and former Mizzou lineman, Kurtis Gregory. Representative, welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
So last week you announced you're running for state senate. Why are you leaving the lower chamber for the higher?
Well, you know, when I first got in, we look at the term limit deal, and we're on in the House every 2 years. The Senate's on every 4 years. You get a total of 8 in the House, 8 in the Senate. Senator Denny Hoskins, pride of Johnson County down here, has been in the 21st for 7 years now, going on 8, and he'll be termed out here at the end of the next session, and it just naturally opened up for me, and I think the district fits really well as it's a heavy agricultural based district, and then go in and catch, I think, Senator Hageman's portion of Clay County that he had when he was in, and it basically puts it back to what it was when another former senator from Saline County named Bill Stofert held the seat, and so I feel like just some natural fits there for me, and just looking forward to the opportunity to get over to the other side of the building.
So you're wanting a Johnson County old drum guy to hand the seat off to a Jim the Wonder Dog guy from Saline County, right?
That is correct. That's what I'm looking for. You know, old drum, you know, great story and great history there, but Jim the Wonder Dog, the things he did in picking Kentucky Derby winners, sexes of babies, you know, going out and finding the lady in the red dress and reading cars' license plates. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
When I ask you who would win this Senate race and who would pick, how he picks the Tigers this fall, we'll wait for that. Let's get into something else. I saw the Republican Party. They picked a businessman for president the last 2 times. Seemed to have went over pretty well. You're a businessman. There's something about a guy that signed both sides of that paycheck. There's something about when you're in business, you don't have time for a lot of the platitudes, the Facebook posts. You almost have to get down to work. Why is it important a party that's the party of Donald Trump right now picks a businessman to represent them in the State House?
Well, I'm not going to say that I understand exactly what it's like to run a small business, because I don't have, you know, 5 to 10 employees or, you know, 20 employees even, like some of the larger small businesses. But I've had to deal on or required labor and help with me on that. It's given me a lot of perspective, especially when it comes to schools. I had some kids in high school working for me. I had to wait for them to get out of class, come drive the tractor and grain cart during harvest season. So there was a lot of late nights with the lights on, waiting for help to show up. But when I talked to those young kids, they said, "You going to college?" And they said, "No, we're not going to go to college. I just want to go to a trade school and get my degree in that and go to a trade." And I asked them, "Why do you not want to go to college?" "Well, I know I'm not going to get good enough grades there. I know I want to go into the workforce." So it gives me that unique perspective on looking at how we need to change that model of just college, only college, maybe focus on some technical institutes, the community colleges across the great state. And then also I get a perspective on what the business owners are dealing with when it comes to borrowing money, paying those bills. Just signed my line of credit with the bank, as we were talking about prior to coming on camera. And I almost fainted when I saw the interest rate on what borrowed money is going to cost this year. And so I'm real familiar with the cost of doing business.
So an issue the Republicans always talk about, that Donald Trump talked about and cut, was taxes. You were part of some groups that cut some taxes this year, cut big taxes last fall. It's different when you actually understand not only what that means for the employee, when you cut that corporate tax rate, you can hire more folks.
Yeah, exactly right. You can hire more folks, give more opportunity to come in. The speaker, Dean Plocker, had a real good way of looking at the corporate tax rate, that if you get rid of that, then what other incentive do you need to draw in those big businesses? And then you can hire the more workers. You're putting more money in the workers' pockets to go spend it the way they see fit. I feel like we passed a very good tax cut package in special session last year, and we got more money in Missourians' pockets. They know how to spend it best.
Starts to get a little scary. The Republican Party is a supermajority in this state, but the supermajority of that supermajority is rural folks. I see you have your corn growers pen on. It's a little frightening sometimes when you see that party sort of turn its back on agriculture. More and more in the state legislature, you see more and more Republicans, more of your maybe woke or suburban Republicans, turn their back on ag. It's important that rural Missouri has someone who actually not only says they're pro-ag, but could actually tell you the difference between a herbicide and a pesticide.
That is absolutely correct. That is a tricky one when you talk about private pesticide applicator training. That actually encompasses spraying the herbicides that actually kill the weeds too. And you know, I tied that together in my announcement. Rural Missouri, rural economies work best when agriculture is successful. You look at your small car dealerships in Marshall, you know, when grain prices are good, when farmers are making money, all the other small businesses are going to have windfalls off of that. Farmers are going in and getting new vehicles. The equipment dealers talking about interest rates again. People aren't going to be going and buying farm equipment like they used to now that interest rates have climbed up. So, got to have a very successful rural economy, and agriculture is a huge part of that.
Last session, the issue of transgender children was dominated almost half the session. There's some pretty sweeping legislation passed. First piece of legislation talked about transgender girls not being able to play in girl sports if they were born as a boy. That seems like something that, even your more liberal folks kind of went, well, okay, I get it.
Yeah, I realize I'm kind of an outlier when I talk about this, just because I'm naturally big. I had the God-given ability to go and play college sports. I worked hard at it. The thing people joke about with me still to this day, when I went into high school, my father told me, "You're not in shape to play high school football yet." I know it, I was there. So he took me to high school weightlifting in Allen, Missouri, and dropped me off with my bike. And it's a 12-mile bike ride back home. And he said, "I'll take you there, but you got to get your own self back." And so that's kind of like the local legend is riding my bike back. But you look at what happened at University of Pennsylvania with Leah Thomas and the swimmer.
Yeah.
And those female athletes were basically told, you cannot talk about this. And they were forced to change in the same locker room as that athlete. And as the father of a daughter, I do not feel like that is correct, and I feel like the majority of people would agree with me on that situation. And when you look at what the governing bodies of swimming and track and field have done also, they're starting to trend that direction also.
Look, I have interviewed a lot of people in that chair and others around the state. I've watched the Republican Party basically capitalize on homophobia many times. I've watched people that felt on this athlete issue, and you would be maybe the person that's ever sat in that chair that would know it best, being the level of college sports you played at. But it's not just unfair, and it's not just an awkward locker room situation. It can be potentially dangerous at times to have someone out there that's just physically bigger, pushing around in a contact sport like a basketball game or something. I felt like it was the one thing that, it was a social issue, but it wasn't a demagogue issue. It was something that rational people could have rational concerns about and not be trying to mistreat folks.
Well, look at mixed martial arts. There was an athlete there that transitioned and was fighting in the female category and was shattering the whole sides and faces of the female athletes, and that's something you just generally don't see when it's female on female.
There's a little more to it, I feel like sometimes. I mean, I think individually, once you meet someone that's trans, or I remember when I was younger, it was people that were gay. It was a great stigma, and there were folks treated unquestionably poorly because of their sexual orientation. A lot of that's went by the wayside. I mean, it's not all, of course, but it's a much better world. People are more tolerant. It just feels like they call it wokeness, whatever, political correctness. It feels like instead of the culture evolving in a normal area, it feels like there's outside forces trying to push it to go further, faster in ways that I'm not sure everybody in Saline County probably is on board with.
You're correct, I think, on that. When you talk about the homophobic issue in sports and everything, I played with a teammate at the University of Missouri, Michael Sam, that he didn't come out until after I had left, but the whole team embraced him. I'm still friends with Mike to this day.
Yeah.
We got along great. When you're down there in that locker room in that setting, for that purpose, it's about winning ball games. And we didn't have a problem with Michael Sam being Michael Sam. And it's just a touchy, tricky subject. There's a lot of emotions involved.
Yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, when you're saying that girls should be playing with girls, boys should be playing with boys, and then you talk about the Title IX and looking the fight that women's sports had to even get a foothold and start coming online, and then just to look at maybe even throwing that by the wayside by allowing this to continue. And so I like the stand that we took.
It's interesting. You do talk about the way things have changed. Well, I think women's sports have changed for the better. It's a good thing. But you don't want to negate those losses. It's almost like you can go so far with some of those things before you can really plan through and think it through that you almost take a step backwards.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. Look at the LSU athletes. There's a women's basketball player at LSU. Actually, there's two of them now. And then they've got the gymnasts down there that are some of the highest compensated NIL athletes in the country. And women's basketball has only gained popularity since the NIL stuff has come along. And making really great strides in gaining viewership and putting a foothold in the marketplace.
I think it's safe to say the NIL laws that are in place for Mizzou now, and every college, UCM even, those would not be in place without you. Why was that important to keep up with the other schools?
It's an arms race. When I was getting recruited, and even when I was playing, it was facilities. Well, now you've got this another area, NIL, name, image, likeness, getting paid for for your name, image, and likeness. So I could go out and done an ad for WK Chevrolet when I played, a GMC Sierra pickup truck, a Tahoe, drive it around, say if I'm buying a vehicle, it's going to be at WK Chevrolet, right? That would have been awesome. And
is it a good thing? I mean, you've actually been. You're probably the only person in that legislature that's been in Division I, top football locker room, and not just locker room, but been at practice and with the guys when they're not. When the coach isn't looking. Is it a good thing overall?
I think it's a great thing overall.
Feels fair.
If we don't have, I wanted to be able to make sure that Missouri's at the top of the list when it comes to NIL, or at least near the top, because if you're not, you're going to fall behind in recruiting. When you fall behind in recruiting, you're going to have many more years of not very good success on the field or on the court or in the gym. And so making sure at the top and recruiting the best means only good things for the state of Missouri.
So where it stands right now, you have an opponent. Left the speaker's race to run for state senate, Representative Doug Ritchie. It's an interesting contrast. Your different sizes, your voices sound different, your backgrounds are different. He comes from the suburbs and from the ministry. You're a farmer from rural Missouri. What's the importance to someone to pick a farmer in that situation?
I think farming is it's hard work. It's hard work. It's understanding people. You got to deal with, other farmers, other businesses, neighborly relations with what type of chemical are you using on your soybeans now, so you got to know how to communicate. But I think for me, it just really boils down to hard work and getting the job done, because at the end of the day, if you don't do something right, planting your crop, if you don't go out there and finish, then you're not going to make a living. You're not going to be able to pay the bills at the end of the day. And so I just want to bring that common sense, like the common sense of I'm not going to go spray Roundup or glyphosate right next to a field of someone that's got conventional soybeans. That's the kind of common sense that we're talking about.
All right, Jim the Wonder Dog neighbor from his hometown, how the Tigers going to do this fall?
I think the Tigers are going to have a great season. I talked to Coach Drinkowitz this spring. We got a transfer quarterback in from, I think it was Miami. And then we've also got, the freshman stud last year, Samuel Horn from Georgia.
Yeah.
He was a high school athlete that came in also playing baseball. And then we've got Brady Cook at quarterback also. And I asked, who's the quarterback going to be? And he said, I'm not going to answer that question, but we've got 2 NFL talent arms and an extremely hard worker. So it's going to be a fun season to watch. We've given him all the tools that he can have to put together a great team. And I think he's going to be able to get the job done in a big way this year.
Well, as the season unfolds and campaign season unfolds, we'll come back here and talk about it with us on This Week in Missouri Politics.
That'd be great. Thank you so much for having me on.
We'll be right back with our opinion maker panel. Wes Rogers graces us with his presence after this.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople, while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
All throughout Missouri, businesses are struggling to find workers. Childcare challenges are a big reason why. Our kids are losing out too. Through high-impact early childhood investments, we can support the workforce of today and better prepare our workforce of tomorrow. Empower families with the resources they need to succeed. Reduce crime and avoid costly interventions, saving taxpayers money. Together, we can make Missouri the best place to work, raise a family, and be a kid.
We all know puppy mills, cruelty, neglect, and pet store puppies are at high risk for disease, even death. We expect our laws to protect dogs, but now an out-of-state company called Petland is trying to change our state law to enable puppy mill cruelty. We all know it'll hurt the dogs we love. Contact your state legislators. Tell them, protect our dogs. Vote no on the cruelty. Vote no on the harmful puppy mill bill.
Data captured by our state-of-the-art monitors helps us pinpoint the timing and location of severe weather more accurately and respond to trouble more quickly. Ameren, Missouri's investment in smart technologies like this is one way we're improving reliability and restoring power faster than ever. Responding to trouble before trouble hits. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics Opinion Maker Panel Time. Representative Rodger Reedy, Warsaw, Benton County, Missouri. Glad to have you back, sir.
Thank you for having me today. Welcome. You're pretty close to the 57th district,
That's right.
So welcome back.
My Germanic roots feel close to coal camp right now.
There you go.
Representative Dan Houx here in Warrensburg. Welcome back to the show, sir.
Always glad to be on with you, Scott.
Representative Emily Weber from Kansas City. Welcome back.
Well, thank you.
And Wes Rogers, former rep, future city councilman. Glad you decided to slum it with your old legislature friends again today.
Yeah, thanks for letting me come back.
U.S. Senate race starting to heat up, kind of taking some shape. Louis Kuntz is in it from Jeff City, now I think Independence area, but a new name jumped in, Wesley Bell, the St. Louis prosecutor, St. Louis County prosecutor, we should say. Talented guy, beat a longtime incumbent, knows how to raise money. I got to say, I think when he jumps in this race, for probably a lot of demographic reasons, frankly, Wesley Bell starts off as the head.
I agree, no question about it. And first of all, say he's got a great name. I think that looks good on the ballot, so I'll vote for him no matter what. Wesley, by the way. Then secondly, he is a prosecutor. I'm a former prosecutor. And thirdly, I don't know him personally. His reputation does precede him. I know he's a Mizzou fan. I like that. So I'm looking forward to a great race.
Emily, the fact is everybody's got an opinion on Kim Gardner. I think even her supporters could say some things could have went differently. She was elected at the same time Wesley Bell was. Folks in St. Louis can disagree, obviously, with the prosecutor's a tough job. He has ran that office without a lot of the issues that Kim Gardner's had. He comes out of it with a lot of respect. He feels like, just frankly, based off demographics, he's probably the leading candidate right now.
I mean, yeah, that looks like what's happening. And I mean, the dynamics over in St. Louis right now, it's two different individuals. And so, of course, there's going to be a little difference in how they kind of run the show and things like that. So,
break it down for me, though. I mean, let's just talk politics for a second. Frankly, in a Democratic primary right now, if you're an African American, you have an advantage over a white heterosexual Christian male like Lucas Kuntz. That's just, if you look back at these competitive races when both candidates have money, there's a bit of a natural tendency. Frankly, the Republican primary is probably the opposite, but there's a natural tendency to have an advantage there.
No, 100%. Yeah, I think with dynamics like that, race is something that a lot of people look at, and so him being a black man, yeah. I mean,
in some ways, it's practicing what Democratic politics has preached to try to find a way to give folks an advantage and try to find a way to find diversity. And it's sort of you see it now, not just in discussions, you see it at the ballot box.
Sometimes, yes. And it also, there's a lot of aspects that you look into something like that. It's not just race. So it's his background and things like that. So
he's an accomplished guy. He's also Wesley Bell's a very dynamic guy. I mean, he's very impressive. When he walks into a room, somebody that's got some charisma is there. He reminds me in some ways of Quentin Lucas. Talk about a dynamic guy from your neck of the woods.
Yeah.
Dan Houx, I mean, the bottom line here, with Joe Biden on the ballot, whether Donald Trump is or not, Joe Biden on the ballot, presidential year, Josh Hawley, well, yes, I get it. There are people that I think he intentionally does things to make some folks recoil. But the average Missourian is going to vote for Josh Hawley, is he not?
I believe in his primary, he won 113 of 114 counties. So I think he'll do it again just fine.
Roger, I mean, he's a different turn guy. He's a bit of an Ivy Leaguer. There are some folks that might not like his style of trying to, get more aggressive in people's faces. But the fact of the matter is, Josh Hawley is a very popular politician in the state of Missouri.
Oh, I think so. He's got the charisma. He's got that energy that people like.
Well, he's so dang smart too. I mean, when he talks, an intelligent guy's talking.
And he had roots there in Henry County, just not very far from here,
sure.
And spent some of his childhood there.
Lafayette County boy, right?
And so, he's got that rural background that helps out in the rural areas, and I just think he's a great candidate, and he's going to do well.
It strikes me that I think Lucas Kuntz, because he's a veteran, might be a better matchup for Democrats. But just looking across the aisle, I don't see, Wesley Bell, if he gets the money that I anticipate that he will, I doubt he would have got in if he didn't think he could. You're probably looking at a Bell-Hawley matchup, and Josh Hawley's the clear favorite there, right?
I believe so. You know, our rural people, they're going to be out to vote, and they're going to be voting for Hawley, I believe.
Wes, tell me. You know, I think Lucas Coons is a dynamic guy. Can raise money. He's got a great story. I mean, honestly, I'm not sure he might not have put a better fight against Eric Schmidt a year ago. But the fact is, whether he gets there or not, can anybody beat Josh Hawley in a Republican year in this state's current dynamic?
No, and as a Democrat, people give me a hard time for telling what I honestly think sometimes, but no, that's not a race that a Democrat is going to win.
It's going to take, like, it's one of those things where, you know, sometimes the last week of the season in the NFL, you're like 8-7. You can make the playoffs if these things happen. You'd be like, it's like you're 6-10, and you need like 2 teams to like fall off the earth to get there. It takes a lot of things to happen, right? But it's out there, but it's like the list of things you need to do to get in those playoffs are long.
Well, yeah, and things have gotten so polarized now. Even going back to 2012 when McCaskill beat Aiken after he said whatever he said, I'm not sure that would be enough for a Democrat at this point. We're so polarized. You know the score going into it, and if you look at those statewide, there's really not that much difference between the top performing and bottom performing people. But I will say this, I disagree with you guys a little bit on how popular Josh Hawley is. I think whoever runs against him is likely to outperform the rest of the ticket.
You think
and
so?
maybe, I think so, and I'm happy to even take a bet on that if it was legal. But I think whoever runs against him does have a chance to get some real momentum, whatever that looks like for a Democrat in Missouri.
I mean, I do think that there are people that have an intense dislike of Josh Hawley that is not true of Mike Parson, let's say. There's some folks that have an intense like, but I would say maybe the intensity on the other side is a little more. But I think your average Missourian votes Republican. What needs to happen here for Democrats to take Josh Hawley out of it? Because, I mean, Josh Hawley's one that you might make a run at it, but as sitting senator, it's going to be tough. Take an open seat. What needs to happen for Democrats to be competitive?
Well, I'm gonna sit here and say this. With Josh Hawley, I do disagree with y'all. I do think that the average voter, I mean, right now, if you look at it, independent voters and a lot of the Republicans, back when we had our last election cycle, when I was out knocking doors in the Republican districts and talking to independent voters and Republicans, they were tired of polarized politics. They were tired of the ultra conservatives. They were tired of the things Josh Hawley was doing. They want somebody who's actually going to work for them and work for the issues that they're concerned about right now.
Do you think a little bit of this is microcosm of in your neighborhood, probably people intensely dislike Josh Hawley.
100%.
In Rogers' neighborhood, they probably like him, more intensely like him. And it's a little bit of, we're all kind of in our own little silos. Let's talk about somebody you know very well, though, that I think could outperform the normal Democrat. Governor's race is coming up. A lot of folks think Crystal Quaid, your House Minority Leader, is going to run. I think she's got a special talent. I think wherever that falls, she could be a person that outpaces the ticket.
I will 100% agree with you. I mean, she's a social worker, and what she's been doing as the minority leader has been amazing. She works across party lines. She works with individuals. She's been working with our House Democratic Campaign Committee, and she led the push to change what we needed to change in that committee to make the strides that we've been making.
You got governor's primary that's probably going to maybe decide who the governor is. Lieutenant Governor Mike Keough, Senator Bill Eigel, and Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft. Where's the race at, Dan?
You know, obviously the namesake is in with Ashcroft because he's been around, but I also think part of the old Ashcroft, the senior, his backing is no longer with us. That makes sense. You know, Keough's traveling the state. He's got a great thing as being lieutenant governor. He uses that well, traveling the state, going to all the state parks, cooking pancakes for people, getting out, really grassroots beating people. You know, Senator Eigel, I don't really know what he's doing. I don't follow him, so I couldn't tell you.
Tell you, it's an interesting thing. I got a buddy of mine got a voicemail just like 3 days ago from John Ashcroft asking someone to write a check to Jay Ashcroft. I do think this. I think you know, if you stand out at a Republican primary next summer polling place, you're going to see a bunch of older folks come up to vote. The average age is going to be, well, old is getting relative to me now, but it's going to be older. It's going to be folks that even if they weren't voters for John Ashcroft, they know the name, and it's a favorable impression. I think that starts out with a huge lead. To me, the question is, in an age of Trump, in an age that we tear down all these institutions, are one of these, is Eigel or Keough going to be able to turn that on him?
Well, I think one of Keough's strengths that he's got, he has a lot of the agriculture groups that have come out early and endorsed him. You know, of course, you know, I'm from a rural area, and that plays really well with cattlemen, soybeans, corn growers, all this type of thing. Also with, Actually, Lieutenant Governor Kehoe came to my hospital in Clinton and gave a Senior Services Award to a lady on her 80th birthday, and was just very much a part of the conversation. But people were glad to see him.
Ain't nobody puts more miles on that F-150 than Mike Kehoe.
Yeah, and so I think he's going to do well out in the rural areas because of those type of things. There's also supporters for Senator Eigel. There's also people that know the Ashcroft name, and in fact, I was actually appointed by old John Ashcroft to county government when I first started in 1992.
There you go.
So I think it's going to be a really interesting race. I just think there's going to be a lot of things happen between now and August of 2024.
Prediction time, though. Can't let you off the hook. Who's going to be the Democrat nominee for U.S. Senate?
Wesley Bell.
Who's going to be the nominee?
Maybe, I don't know.
Are you going to tap? That is not like you at all. Who's going to be the Democrat nominee?
I think this Wesley Bell, too.
Who do you think?
Wesley Bell.
Well, it makes sense. Who's going to be the Republican nominee for governor?
Oh, that's
not who you support. Who's going to win?
I believe that it depends who actually files. I'm not sure that all three of them will file, but if all three files, I'm going to say that Lieutenant Governor Kehoe.
Who wins that primary?
I agree with Roger. Kehoe wins.
Going to come out swinging, ain't he? Like he has.
Yes, he has.
That's the thing. He had to come out swinging. He's done it. Who's going to be the Republican nominee?
Kehoe.
You think so?
I'll say John Ashcraft, because I think that's what the name's going to be on the ballot, isn't it?
Probably. If he's smart, it will be. With a minute left, Wes Rogers, who won the week?
Big League Baseball in the state of Missouri won the week this week. It's summertime. There's 8 states in this country with more than 2 big league ball clubs. The 7 most populous states in the country and Missouri. And it's summertime, and anywhere in the state you can listen to your favorite team.
Wish we could watch some good baseball in the
God.
state, but who won the week?
But we still got it.
It's so it's June. It's Pride. So LGBTQIA community going out there and fighting for their rights and continuing to stand up.
That pin selection was not coincidence, was it?
I always wear it.
Who won the week?
I think the Missouri truckers, there's a bill that got passed by Senator Brown. I do believe the governor signed it today. They don't have to physically take time off of work to go in to turn in their medical card. They go back to the COVID age. It's good enough in COVID. Should be good enough today.
Who won the week?
I think as we wrap up the school year, I think our Missouri school teachers, whether they're public, private, charter schools, these teachers have worked really hard. I've talked to some who have brought kids a tremendous amount of distance from the first of the year to the end of the year. These are kids that went through the COVID thing, and the progress that's being made. And since my favorite teacher is my wife, she and I also won the week as we got to go spend time with our new grandson.
Absolutely. I'm going to say Andrew Bailey won the week. Bunch of big wins in court on the opioid settlement, and I think he's hitting the ground running with his rag of pals this week, coming out with a head of steam. Hope you'll win the week next week by joining us for This Week in Missouri Politics. But first, stick around if you're watching on ABC 30. Justice and Journalism with Judge Mike Carter will be on. Always fun. He always comes up with a new topic. We'll see you back here with Jason Bean for This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics is sponsored by the Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, Ameren, Spire, and the United Electric Cooperative.